Have you ever just looked around and wondered, why do some people seem to, well, radiate peace, almost uplift others,
Hmm.
while others just seem to spread, I don't know, fear or discord, even destruction?
It's a fundamental question, isn't it?
It really is. Like, what's really at the heart of these huge differences in how people behave and, well, where their lives end up going?
Yeah.
So today, we're going to try and get into that journey right to the core of human choice, really, using some ancient wisdom as our guide.
Sounds good.
We're doing a deep dive into chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita. It's called Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, which basically unpacks the divine and demoniac natures.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating about this chapter and kind of our mission today is how Krishna reveals these two really profound forces that shape our lives.
Two forces.
Actually, it's a super clear map of what he calls the divine qualities versus the demoniac tendencies. And the core theme, well, it's powerful. Your character really shapes your destiny.
Character shapes destiny. I like that.
Right. So the goal for you listening is not just to understand these two natures, but maybe get some insight into which one you might be, cultivating yourself and why that actually matters.
Okay, yeah. Let's definitely unpack this. Explore these two really distinct paths.
So Krishna, he doesn't really beat around the bush. He lays out this very clear distinction. On one hand, the Daivi Sampad, those are the divine qualities.
Right.
And on the other, the Asuri Sampad, the demoniac tendencies. Think of them like two different blueprints for how we act.
Blueprints, yeah.
And each one leads to, well, dramatically different places for the person and for everyone around them, too.
And what really hits home for me there is it's not just about what you do,
Yeah.
right? It's about the qualities you're building up inside.
Exactly. Deep within.
And how those determine where you're headed in life, your inner world, your outer impact, all of it.
Precisely.
So this idea of divine qualities, it sounds great, maybe a bit lofty, but also really practical somehow.
Yeah.
What exactly does Krishna point to as these elevating traits?
Well, he gives quite a list, actually, in the first few verses, 16.1 to 3. And what's interesting is how they all seem connected. Like he starts with fearlessness, apayam, which isn't just, being brave in a fight. It's more like this deep inner security.
Okay, inner security.
Yeah, and that allows other good things to grow. So alongside that, you have purity of mind, sattva sanshuddhi, and real self-discipline in your spiritual practice.
Right. Discipline comes up a lot.
It does. And then there's a big focus on how you treat others. Nonviolence, ahimsa, and truthfulness, satyam.
Takes courage, I imagine, that fearlessness you mentioned.
Absolutely. It takes courage to stick to the truth or to not cause harm, especially when it's, the harder path.
Sure.
Then there are others like calmness, forgiveness, huge ones, compassion for everyone, and importantly, humility, being free from greed.
Ability, yeah.
And when we actually cultivate these, the text says the outcome is pretty clear. They lift the soul up. They lead towards liberation, towards harmony with the divine.
That's a really powerful list.
Yeah.
As you were talking, I was thinking, what stands out to you personally from that list? Maybe it's particularly challenging or foundational.
It's a good question.
I mean, that nonviolence one.
Hmm.
Really living that in a world that often seems to value, well, the opposite. That takes incredible strength.
It really does. Nonviolence requires immense inner strength, you're right. But I almost think fearlessness might be the bedrock,
How so?
Well, without that basic inner security, how can you truly be truthful if it makes you unpopular? Or forgiving when it feels impossible? They seem to build on each other. Fearlessness enables the others.
That makes sense. They're interconnected. Okay, so while those qualities paint this picture of upliftment, Krishna, as you said, doesn't shy away from the opposite.
Not at all.
So what happens when people lean the other way? Towards these demoniac tendencies, what are those qualities and where does that path lead?
Right. So verse 16.4 dives into that. It details the things that steer someone down that very different road. Here you see things like hypocrisy, dampho, and arrogance, darpo. Pride, abhimanasha.
Okay, the ego stuff.
Big time. And they're not just fleeting moods, they become part of someone's core identity. Then you also have anger, krodha, harshness, and how they speak and act, parishamepata. And underneath it all, a kind of fundamental ignorance, ajnanam, about spiritual truth.
Ignorance. Interesting.
Yeah, and this path, the Asuri Sampad, it leads, well, the text says, into darkness. It's driven by ego, by hate, by delusion. People on this path often reject, scriptural wisdom, deny God, or any higher purpose.
That ends with 4.
Pretty much immediate gratification. Sense, pleasures, power. Verse 16.7 puts it bluntly. The demoniac often don't know what they should do or what they should avoid. Their actions lack purity, truth, discipline, because that inner compass is just way off.
It's one thing to list the traits, like hypocrisy or anger, but what's the thinking behind it? What's the internal world actually like for someone cultivating these things?
Yeah, that's crucial. Verses 16.8 and 9 give us a real glimpse into that worldview. It's deeply cynical and self-focused.
How so?
They might basically say, this world, what is it but lust and chance? You know, their minds are convinced there's no God, there's no real purpose beyond just grabbing what you can. Just enjoy yourself before you die.
Wow, that's bleak.
It is. And Krishna explicitly warns that thinking like this, holding these sort of false nihilistic views, it doesn't just stay in their head.
Right, it leads to action.
Exactly. It compels them to act harmfully, to engage in destructive things, and ultimately it leads to their own destruction too. It's a mindset really rooted in just unchecked self-gratification and denying anything beyond the material.
Okay, so that makes you wonder then if these qualities really shape our inner world and our actions so much. What are the ultimate consequences? Where do these two paths really lead in terms of like destiny?
Krishna gets pretty specific about the outcomes, especially in verses 16.19 and 20. Cultivating that divine nature, the Daivi Sampad, consistently uplifts the soul. It moves you towards liberation, that connection with the divine we talked about.
Like the upward path.
Right, but the demoniac path, it's described as leading to repeated birth into suffering. Krishna says something quite stark, something like, I hurl the cruel and hateful into demoniac wombs again and again.
Whoa. That's intense.
It's a serious warning about the karmic weight of these actions and mindsets when they become deeply ingrained. But, and this is really crucial, maybe the aha moment for you listening, the source stresses that change is always possible.
Ah, okay. So it's not like a fixed fate. You're not just doomed if you recognize some of those negative traits in yourself.
Exactly. That's such a key point. It's not presented as an inescapable destiny. Change is possible.
That's actually a really powerful note of hope within that stark warning. The idea that change is always on the table, that's huge. But I bet some listeners might be thinking, okay, great, but if I've been acting out of pride or anger for years, how realistic is this change for me? Is it like ever too late?
That's a completely fair and practical question. And no, Krishna isn't suggesting it's, easy, like flipping a switch.
Right.
But he absolutely offers a tangible way forward. Look at verses 16.23 and 24. He basically says, look, if you ignore the wisdom in the scriptures, you won't find perfection or peace.
So the scriptures are the guide.
Exactly. He says, let scripture guide you on what you should do and what you shouldn't. It's like an invitation, really, to actively build those divine qualities.
For what?
Through discipline, real self-discipline, by paying attention to the wisdom in these texts and through devotion. It gives you a practical framework, something actionable.
For anyone who wants to shift their nature.
Yes, exactly. No matter how stuck those old patterns might feel, it's definitely presented as a journey, not an overnight fix. And it starts with just that first step of discernment, deciding you want to change and committing to it.
This whole deep dive into chapter 16, it really brings it home, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That the qualities we choose to cultivate inside ourselves, peace or pride, humility or ego, love, anger, they're not just abstract thoughts.
Not at all.
They're literally the architects of our inner lives and, well, ultimately our destinies.
Yeah, and if you sort of zoom out, connect it to the bigger picture, this isn't just some ancient philosophy locked away in a text.
Really?
No, I mean, it feels like a timeless, really profound invitation for some serious self-reflection, Taking personal responsibility, it cuts across cultures, across centuries. It's asking us to look at our own inner blueprints.
A call to examine our own blueprints. Yeah, I like that. So, thinking about everything we've unpacked today, maybe for you listening, what's one quality from that divine list? Fearlessness, truth, compassion, humility, any of them that you might intentionally focus on cultivating just a little bit more in your own life, say, this week, and just maybe. How might even that small conscious shift start to reshape your own personal path, your destiny?